So how many of you are project managers or program managers? Okay. So one of the things that people often ask is, what's the difference between what a business analyst does and what a project manager does? And so the reason that there is confusion is both roles are driving to the same goal. So a project manager wants to make sure that you meet the business needs of your department, your division. That's their goal. And then the business analyst wants that same thing. However, what they bring to the table is different, and what they're tasked with is different. So the business analyst is all about understanding the needs of the business. That's the team that they're representing. That's what the role they're playing in the team. The project manager is responsible for planning, managing, and delivering a solution that was oftentimes a part of that early scoping process that took, 5 years to get together, and they're being held accountable for that. So there are natural points of tension between those two roles. If you look at what the two roles, and I'll let you read, I won't read it for you, you can see that although they're often touching the same information, they're responsible for different parts of it, or they play different parts. And I'll talk about stakeholders for a good example. The project manager is responsible for identifying who are the stakeholders in this project. They usually come together, they have a list of the stakeholders, that's often a role that they play. On the other hand, the role of the business analyst is to create a connection. They play that liaison between the business, those stakeholders, and the project teams, the IT team, and so on. So when you look at these different roles, there are points that they come into conflict. That's natural. If everybody's doing their job well, there's going to be points of tension. So one of the important things when you're starting a program and you're working as a business analyst and you're a good program manager is before you get very deep into it, decide how you are going to resolve the conflicts that will happen. Because those places where he's representing what's important, and this is the discussion, this was scoped 4 years ago, and actually our solution is slightly different than what we actually thought it was going to be, and now the changes have happened because of this new legislation, and so we actually have to change. And the project manager is saying, I have this budget, I have this scope, I have this timeline. What you're talking about really pushes things out in a way that's not going to work. So how do you deal with that? You deal with that by knowing it's going to happen and thinking up front, how will we solve those conflicts? How will we resolve it? One of the ways that I like to do it is early in a project, be very, very clear, and we'll talk a little bit more about this. What are the imperative things that you must do in this project? Smart people on projects can come up with more ideas than you can possibly do in the scope or time of any project. You have to say, what are the things, the 4 or 5 things that we absolutely must get done, prioritize them, and then when new ideas come up or important things come up or things that you have to look at as requirements come up, turn on the mic. Yeah, thank you. Oh, I hate that. That's so irritating. All right, I hope you got that on film and tape. And see, now I can't even remember what I was talking about. So once you have that information and you know what's imperative, when new ideas come up, have a process where you all agree this is how we're going to prioritize. One of the things I like to do is what I call a Moscow list. Anybody ever hear of that? Moscow? It's just a way of remembering what must we have, what should we have, what could we have, and what won't we have. And you look at your requirements that way, and you say, is this something, you look at our imperative, must we have this? Should we have this if we have enough time? Could we have it if suddenly money fell in our lap? And is this something that's not going to be happening? So get that decided up front. Essential skills when you're looking at a business analyst, if you're looking to hire, one of the things I often hear from teams is, well, we really can't afford that because we can't get MBAs. Okay, that's just, MBAs, like PhDs, are entertaining at parties, but they're really not that important. What's really important in a good business analyst is that they understand the day-to-day work of a department. They know how things actually work. This means that managers are often not very useful in this role.
And I'm not saying that to be funny, but oftentimes the management knows how they think it should work, or maybe even how they believe it works. But the reality is that the people who really know how it works may not be in the management role. Management has a lot of things they're doing, they have their own budgets and so on. The people who are actually doing the work. So a good business analyst understands how things actually work, and they understand why. So that person, I often say, when you're looking for a good business analyst, look in your functional group and look for the person who funky tech. In other words, the person who really understands the function and likes technology. They're the person who sometimes is a super user on existing systems. They really like the technology. They are not threatened by technology. They're not necessarily the person who came out of the IT shop, but they're somebody who really gets it and enjoys it. If they don't enjoy it, they're not going to be good at it. You can also find good business analysts on the IT side, but they also have to like the business side. They have to enjoy that. They have to be able to make that connection in the business side and really understand how it works and why it's happening. And then be able to think creatively, how do we use this technology, this solution to solve challenges here. When you're looking for people to fill this role, you want to find people that above all are curious. Because there's not always a clear path to analyzing a business situation or a business need. And then you want to find people who can connect well with other people. So someone who says, I really like working in the network room by the server because it's cold and dark, probably not the person for this job. You want somebody who likes to connect to people and enjoys that. And isn't daunted by what is the inevitable frustration of this kind of role, because you're often in a place where there's conflict. So they have to be somebody, I would say, I always tell my team, no drama, no trauma. The project itself has that. If you bring it into the project, you're just making things worse for everybody. So people who can reduce trauma and drama are really good. Okay, so just to sum it up, what you're looking for is business understanding and technical understanding, and when those two come together, magic happens. Well, it's probably not actually magic, but it is high value for you because you really can think critically about what is valuable and really, really important in big projects and big transformations. What is perhaps valuable but not today that we can push off for later. So, enough of us talking. We're going to do a little exercise. On your table is a reprint of this so you can see it. So thinking about yourself as if you're the business analyst, you're in the business, and go to the side, there's actually two exercises. So we're going to start with the one with the pretty boxes on it. Think about a project that you're either working on now or you have in the past, and what are some of the challenges and what are some of the things that went really well, and choose one or two of these topics to discuss with the team at your table, and take a minute to introduce yourselves too so you know who's sitting near you. So we're going to give you about 10 minutes and we'll put a timer on.
Hi. And I told myself.
Okay. Sorry to interrupt your conversation.
She comes from management.
Hopefully you all had a chance to discuss some good topics on your tables and perhaps even do a few introductions. So, does anybody want to volunteer and share what has worked well in their experience? Any good stories?
Dan offered up something.
Okay, great.
I forgot what I said. No,
What? And your name is Dan, we know that.
Dan from Civic Colors Office. What I said, when you have smaller groups and you can have a team that you can identify your tech experts in your business group, and you can rely on them to bridge some of that gap. And as long as up front you identify your important terms, then you can move forward without each person expecting different things when a certain term comes up.
Really good point, and that gets to that translation.
I just add that real quick. My name is Lisa, and
where are you from, Lisa?
Department of Motor Vehicle. What worked for us in the last large project that I was on was we had working groups from each of the SDLCs. So, you know, one or two, and we'd get together and we would do our jab sessions in that format. And that seemed to really help as far as communications because we all communicate differently. And so it did help us create some possible misunderstandings.
Great. I saw a few more hands on what works well. Yes?
I work for the Department of Water Resources, and we just recently implemented a formal project intake methodology. And the first key thing that is really helping us to become more successful is we assign a business analyst, a project manager, a lead technical team from our architecture, and then work with the business side, and that seems to be working better.
Great, great. Okay, let's talk about what hasn't worked so well. Not everybody on the ones.
Challenges.
Any challenges that you want to share? Sure, go ahead.
When Pat Valencia Carlson from Department of General Services on the Fiscal project.
Okay.
So at a past department, I found in a couple IT projects, as a business user, when the IT people think they have a vision of how it's going to work, and then won't come, that's it. That's how it's going to work, and it doesn't really matter what the business needs are, or if they've changed, or that's a problem.
That's a great example. We're going to try to talk a little bit today about how important it is to align the vision of both the strategic plan of your department or agency, or maybe even the state, with the business and technology, IT, so that you're all driving toward the same thing. That's great. Anybody else want to share anything?
I think one of the big things for us is the
Where are you with? Where are you from?
I'm Patty. I'm from D&D. And one of the things she talked about was, and I think the problem we have is the language between business and technology. Even though she works for the DMV, she just said SDLC and JAD sessions.
Oh, yeah, I did.
And those are things that a lot of people, like, I'm a policy manager. I manage a group of business policy analysts, and a lot of times they say, okay, give us your business rules, and we have a liaison group called RAD, they're called Registration Automation, and they are the people that will turn our document into something that the IT folks can understand. But a lot of times it'll come back to us and you're not telling us what you want, so there's this language barrier within the department.
You know, I can totally sympathize with or empathize with that, because at Accenture we use way too many acronyms too, and we have to actually document that so that we all speak the same language. So, so great. Thank you for sharing that. I hope that was helpful to kind of talk through those questions.